Wow, I want to have a happy back. You thought I was going to say something else. Oh, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
It's so good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Herman Miller, the chairs. I mean, and stuff. The technology, the design ethic that goes into it it's pretty incredible.
I looked at Herman Miller many years ago. And I sort of poo-pooed the idea of why do I want to sit in a chair that looks like it's an office chair when I can sit in this beautiful tapestry, Queen Anne looking chair from some amazing artist. Well, this chair is not meant to sit in for 12 hours a day.
No chair is meant to be sat in for 12 hours a day. Let's be clear on that.
This is a chair to have tea and get up.
Right.
And Herman Miller chair, I would love to like wheel it around. So I'm thinking, as much as I want that Herman Miller chair, I am going to change the habit so that I am not wearing anything for that long stagnant, whether it's a chair or a desk or whatever it is. We have to keep our bodies healthy. It's not, this is like being back in the office.
That's what this was this morning. You can kind of see the little bit of color.
What is that?
So it's juiced vegetables and fruit. So
nice.
I'm just trying to up my game a little bit.
Oh, well, and you're going to go skating and you're going to be doing all these.
There'll probably be a little bit of wine this weekend as well.
So you're going to have red. Red is the theme, right?
It's got to be red wine. So, and mentioning that, today is Chinese New Year's Eve. So Gung Hei Fat Choi. I hope I said that right. I did research it a bit, so I hope I got the pronunciation right.
It's also National Find a Friend Day.
Oh yeah?
Check that out. Yeah, make a friend
day. Cool.
Yeah, so reach out to somebody and find out more about them and be a new friend or a better friend or a more consistent friend as opposed to, that fair weather friend phrase. Yeah, you know what I meant. Yeah, I said it right, fair weather friend. Yeah. Don't be one of those people. Be one of those solid people.
Right.
What are we going to talk about today, Dr. Energy?
Well, I think we're going to talk about audience expectations and what your audience expects from you. So I think as a part of that expectation, people are probably, if you're new here, you're probably wondering, who are these two and why should I care? So why don't we introduce ourselves?
Okay, I'll introduce myself today.
Yep.
Because I clearly know who I am. I am Catherine Asaro Myers, affectionately known as Rara. I am sitting with you today, not in a Herman Miller chair, but I'm sitting in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, Canada. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful here. I am the co-owner, co-creator, co-producer, co-director, co of B.U.Network and B.U.Network podcasts. Thank you for joining us today.
I should take myself off mute before I speak. And I am the other everything of B.U. Network, Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza. And I did not name myself Dr. Energy. That came from Rara. And we can have that conversation one of these days, how that name came about. And we're just here to share with you information and knowledge and our wisdom, our experience over 70 plus years combined experience of live presentations, live speeches, and hopefully help you connect with your audience better in a way that is authentic and add integrity with who you be.
Ah, love that. There's two parts to the audience. There's you as the presenter, and then there's you as the audience. So when you're talking about presenting, you could be taking the perception of, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to stand up on the stage? Where do I stand? Where do I look? Is the lighting right? Is my face too light, too dark? Am I having a wardrobe malfunction? Right. There's so many things to think about. But the other aspect, how's my sound? The other aspect is the audience and how are they feeling? So we can talk a little bit about like both perspectives, right? Audience expectations.
Absolutely.
So let's see if we told the mark here. So to be informed, our first order of business is to properly convey our message. So we let you know who we are, what we're doing, why we're here. And this would develop, well, it would definitely answer any question that someone would have, and we can start to develop trust if you can relate to us in the way that we're speaking. So it would be to be informed.
Right. So I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction. And when we say to be informed, when you're being the presenter, take a step back and think to yourself, what if I was in this audience of this audience that I'm about to give this presentation to, what would I most like to know about? And now it's going to take a little bit of research. You're going to have to get in touch with your audience, whether it's through your email list or if you're an invited speaker or presenter, speak to the host and find out who is going to be in your audience. Is it going to be a group of realtors? Is it going to be a group of entrepreneurs? Is it going to be a group of doctors? Is it going to be a group of massage therapists? Whatever it might be, you can tailor your presentation, your speech to your audience so that it becomes about them and they walk away feeling, hey, I got what I was looking for when I came to this presentation.
Good point. I'll give another perspective. To be captivated. So as the presenter, you might be wondering, well, I know my material, or maybe I have my notes, and I'm going to talk about this procedure or this idea. As content needs to be, obviously you have to have good content. It's really important to know how to captivate the audience. So whether we're here in a digital world or we're here in live, I mean, that maybe it's even easier if you're live, right? Because you can see what people are doing. Here, we don't know if you're in the room. Hopefully you're not.
Comment in the chat, in the
let us
comments
know
for us.
here.
Yeah.
We want to be able to be entertaining with this information. So we want to have our way about us that you're going to be looking for, be looking forward to. Maybe there's something like, oh, is she wearing her headset? Or how is that, accent coming out? Or, is he going to do that thing with his hair? Or, be captivated. You don't want to be boring. So it's okay to be normal and natural, and it's okay to pick up. It's okay to just be yourself.
Right. You
don't want to be this strict robot that is like, I am perfect, and therefore my information is boring. Sing a little song, do a little dance, do something that will give people a connection, a positive connection, positive emotional connection to your speech.
Right.
And they may, Maya Angelou says it, people will forget what you say, they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you make them feel. So make them feel something.
Beautiful. Hi, Joe. Good to see you here.
Hi, Joe.
Be captivating, as Catherine said. It takes practice to be captivating. It takes preparation and forethought to deliver a presentation that is captivating. Hello, William. Good to see you here as well. Practice your transitions from one part of your presentation to the next. Maybe create a group of slides that has that transition built in. Be able to weave stories into your presentation. The stories are how we connect emotionally with each other, with our audience. And this is why we need to be informing and informed with and by our audience so that we know what to deliver to our audience. And then the stories can be relevant for our audience.
Thank you. You want to let your audience know absolutely why you're up there talking about the subject. So how would I inspire you? Would I say something like, when I was little, I used to always be the announcer. I can tell you something absolutely true about myself and why I feel that this is such a natural thing for me to do and why I've devoted myself to being a speaker, an introducer, an interviewer since I was single digits. So we won't tell you how old that story has been going on, but it's no secret. What's important is to know that we owe it to the audience. It's our responsibility to let the audience know why we believe we should be here and give them this connection. Our presentation, I have so many things I want to say, but I'll say one more thing so Dr. Energy can talk about it. Our presentation should truly be authentic. If you're talking about something that you know nothing about, say so. Say, this is my first time talking about this. Be authentic. People will still watch you as long as you are you. Dr. Energy?
Thank you. The inspiring part, that's one of the main reasons people will come and listen to us. Hopefully they come and listen to us. And as Ra mentioned, be authentic about something and tell people, hey, I'm struggling with this, or this is the first time I'm doing this, and I hope I'm hitting the mark. How far you go in that, because you don't want to make it an open free-for-all, especially if you're in a really big room. But there are ways of soliciting that feedback from your audience so that we can really make sure we are, in fact, hitting the mark. And remember this, your audience wants you to succeed. They want to be informed. They want to be captivated. They want to be inspired. So they are actually cheering for you. Remember this. It's really, really important. They want you to do well.
That's such a good point. We should believe that the audience is there cheering us on. And if you don't see it, imagine it. Imagine that that audience is looking at you and clapping for you and excited that you took the time to share that information with them. Let's talk a little bit about how do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little tricky to get the audience to do things.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we do it all the time. But, there's still certain, some people say, do this. And someone says, why? Why should I do that? So Think about how you're going to get your audience to engage. Think about it. If you were them, number one, if you're going to do an exercise, there are people that need to have information. So you can tell them, we're going to do an exercise during this presentation. I'm going to ask for your participation. It's completely voluntary. And I would love for you to participate with me. You probably don't want to leave it to the last minute and say, okay, everybody, jump up. It's okay for the quick starts, but when you're giving a presentation, in order to get some success, you can make it look like it's effortless. You can make it look like it's the last minute, but give some notice to this audience so that they understand what you're going to be giving them. Let them know in advance.
Great advice. Give them a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. If you're going to do an exercise, easy for me to say, and this is the beauty of live video. What is the tangible difference that doing this exercise is going to make for them? What is the benefit, right? What's that, Catherine? What's that thing we always say? What's Whiffy? No,
what's in it for me?
What's in it for me, right? So what's in it for your audience? They want to know this. And when we can explain why we're doing what we're doing, what we hope to help them to achieve, how the solution that we're offering can be a solution to the problem that they're having or to a challenge that they are experiencing, that is going to make a huge difference for them. And then they're going to have some skin in the game and be invested in what you're doing because they can see how it's going to help them move forward.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. It takes me to the next point. Demonstrate to your audience how much you value their time. We value your time. We want to tell you, and we want to make sure that you know how important that is to us. Because if you walk into the room and you leave the room and you don't feel appreciated, you might think, well, I didn't really get a good feeling there. But if you come into the room and we let you know how much we appreciate you. We explain to you how important that is to us. We don't really want you to leave the room feeling let down. I mean, you may have to leave the room, happens, but we definitely want you to feel like you want to come back and you want to hurry up back. So we don't want to let you down. You don't want to let your audience down. What we're doing here is very similar to what we're talking about, because we want to make sure that the subject matter is important to you. We want to let you know how important it is to us that you're here, and we want to make you feel heard and appreciated.
Well said. And remember this, your audience cannot read your mind. They're not mind readers. And this is one of the traps that we often fall into, even as presenters. We are trying to gauge our audience's reaction to what we're saying. And sometimes the audience reaction isn't really what we hoped for. And so we start to create this story in our head while we're presenting, saying, oh, they're not interested, they're disengaged, they're on their phone. But who knows? They may actually be super engaged. And maybe that's how they take notes, is on their phone or on a laptop, or maybe they're tweeting out or sharing on social media what you're sharing because it's that meaningful to them. So it only looks like they're not paying attention, but they may actually be. So don't be a mind reader of your audience, and don't expect them to read your mind. And this is why setting the expectations at the beginning of a presentation or a speech, telling them what you're going to tell them, then telling them, and then telling them what you told them. There's a reason that recipe works. People can connect with that, and they feel, okay, here's what they said they were going to teach us this. They taught us this, and then they told us what they teach us. And yes, it matches up. So it builds that trust with your audience.
Great point. Find out as much. You're welcome. Find out as much as you possibly can about your audience. How are you going to do that? You might be saying, like, how am I going to find out about my audience? Well, make it your business. If you know who you're speaking to, you know in advance, you can maybe find out on the spot. Find out how they like to learn. We talked about that. Ask questions prior to your event, whether you're doing a live questionnaire or you're asking them to fill something out, whatever method you're doing, find out as much as you can. Engage with those people, with your audience, and then speak to them in that way. Oh, I love what's going across the screen, Dr. Energy. Yeah, Dr. Energy's busy with technology. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is
Did I just disrupt you there?
No, I was
putting that ticker up there.
I thought that was great. I thought that was awesome. I was done. I was passing it on to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I can jump in for a quick point on finding out about your audience. That's if you're okay with that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So this I talked about this in the previous part when we were talking about informing and captivating your audience. Treat this as a business, because it is part of your business. Find out about your audience. You wouldn't invite an NHL hockey player to show up to play a game in an NFL stadium that doesn't have any ice, right? You're not gonna bring a hockey team and put them on a football field and expect them to play football against a football team when they're in their hockey gear, right? So it's about knowing your environment, your audience, and it involves doing a bit of research. Treat it with the reverence that it deserves. Back to you.
Thank you. I was playing around with the settings on my mic and headset. Do I sound any different? Yeah, everything's down okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, perfect. Also, let your audience know upfront why you believe your content. Let them know the connection to your information. Maybe you lived it. Maybe it's a story. Hopefully it would be great if it would be a story. And let your audience know if it's your personal story. I always remember when I went to Vegas and I heard Eric Worre tell a story about his fridge and the food in his fridge. He told it so well. I had the aroma of how he was describing that rancid food in his fridge and how he never wanted to live that again, and how he didn't want to explain to his wife what had happened because they couldn't pay the electric bill. And I sat in the audience, and he was up on stage. Of course, it was very grandiose, but he told that story. It was real. He had lived it. And I bought right into it, thought, oh my God, how did he feel? I was feeling for him, even though it was a story from, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago. So I do recommend that you be very authentic and let your audience know what relationship you have to your content.
That's a great point. And I remember being at one of the bridge sessions that you used to run at the Richmond Hill Country Club, and speaking. I had a presentation ready to go, and I had it already in my mind. I knew who I was speaking to already, so I had a pretty good idea what they wanted to hear. And then I started talking to everybody before I started the presentation. And there were some different ideas that came along and opened up some new possibilities for the presentation. So what I did was actually on the fly shifted some of my presentation. I didn't need to change the slides, but I was able to adapt what I was going to present to the conversation that I had with some of the audience members before I went up on stage, before I went to the front of the room. And this made the whole interaction in the presentation a much more connected experience. And your audience goes, oh, he actually just took what we were talking about and put it in the presentation. So it works really, really well to be connected with your audience.
Love that. Yeah, thank you. Have you ever heard a presenter and you say to yourself, I heard that before. I keep hearing the same story. Oh, we listen to people. I've been listening to Jordan Adler for 12 years, and I love hearing the same story over and over again. And I get something different out of it each time. Sometimes someone will say, well, I heard that story, so I won't tell that one. I don't know. Why not? Just because you're saying and you're doing the same thing for years, don't assume that it works, but yet don't assume that it doesn't. Be aware of what's going on around you and how successful your audience is relating to you, if that makes sense. How successfully they're relating to you. Do your homework, establish in advance like what you have to offer, rehearse, give value. And if you don't think that this story is going to come across as an honest story, then please don't tell it. Your body language will say volumes to your words. If you are able to speak from your heart, I was going to say your gut too, whether your story is an old one and you won't let it go, or it's an old one and it's what people want to hear, be in tune and be open to change and be open to sticking with something that is good.
Right. And remember that just because you've always done something the same way, it's not necessarily going to work for everyone. Sometimes the solution that we have is not for everyone. What was that recent podcast we did? It was with Kathy Barthel, about if you're not repelling people,
yes,
you're doing it wrong.
I love
right?
it.
So sometimes what you're doing or saying is not going to connect with everybody in your audience, nor should it. We want to keep our mind open as an audience to new ideas, and we want to keep our mind open as a presenter that it may not work for everybody. And if you think and can sense that this solution is not going to work for a particular or potential client, tell them. be honest with them and tell them, look, I don't think that what we have is for you. Let me refer you to somebody else who does have the solution that you're looking for, and you can get your needs met. You can get a solution to the problem that you're facing. That's going to go miles longer to building connection and trust with your people, because it doesn't mean you have to be the solution to everybody's problem. But helping somebody find the solution to their problem, they're going to be grateful that you help them find that solution, whether it's you or somebody else. And they're going to say, hey, they put my needs ahead of their own, and they helped me get what I was looking for. And then there's also times where, you know, we've all had those clients, those patients, those people in our life that and I don't want to be pejorative about this, and I just negated that. I don't want to be pejorative about this. And there are some people who we connect with, and it's like putting good energy after bad, good money after bad, right? It's a time suck, and we don't get anywhere, and it feels like beating your head against the wall sometimes. And so sometimes we can see those clients coming, and it's like, okay, I know may not be a connection there. Let me refer you to somebody else. It happens for everybody.
Good point. Let it go. Which brings me to the next point about
let it go. I don't want to go too deep into that. We don't need any copyright strikes.
Right. You said we can't say too much, right. Which leads us right into the next part that I want to discuss. And you do this so well. So if someone challenges you and you're a presenter, if someone asks you a question, sometimes people think like they have to ask you exactly at this moment. I need to ask you now. So if they challenge you and somehow they get to you, you do not have to answer them. And if you do, they don't have to accept it. So think about the two aspects. If someone asks me a question and I say, well, that's the way it is, really, like, I'm probably not going to win too many fans like that. One thing I can do if I have an audience, and I have an audience right here, if somebody put a question in the chat and said, why don't you use a green screen? I might say, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to share the reasons why they do and don't use a green screen? I can pick up my tea, my ginger turmeric. I can have a little sip, and I can see all the messages coming in, and maybe Dr. Energy would read them. So what I want you to think about is if someone does challenge you, they do not have to accept exactly what you say. So please try not to say it as this is the be all and end all. And in addition to that, you don't have to answer. Let someone else answer. And then you can, of course, come in as the expert.
Right. So one of the this is a great point, and it's a great strategy to involve your audience, to engage your audience. So it ends up becoming not that we don't want to answer the question, but we have an audience in front of us who brings their wisdom, their experience to the presentation. I remember being at a chiropractic seminar, and one of my mentors at the beginning of the weekend, it was a 3.5-day seminar, and he said, I'm going to use all of the resources at my disposal to help you get what you need to get this weekend. And of course, all of the resources means all of the people in the room, not just himself. And so throughout the weekend, we were doing different exercises, and for virtually all of them, we'd have a mic going around the room, and he would say, who else has a sense of what's happening here, or what else could we add to this, or how might we handle this differently? And so all of a sudden, when somebody would ask a question from the audience, and then he would turn it around and say, who else has an answer to that? And people would chime in, and we would get different perspectives on those answers. And as Catherine mentioned, while that is happening, the presenter can be checking notes just to see where you are in the presentation, make sure we're on time with the presentation on our agenda, because you want to stay on time or ahead of time. And you could be getting a sip of tea, because your throat might be getting a little bit dry, because if you're on stage for a long time. So it's all these ways of generating the answers, and then you can turn back to the original question, the person who posed the original question, say, does that answer your question? And they're going to say yes or no. And if they say yes, then great. Hey, thanks for the question and thanks for all the sharing. If they say no, then you can ask, does anybody else have an answer? So it can be this feedback. You don't want to go on ad infinitum, but it can be a good way of engaging the audience. And then everybody feels like they had a part in contributing to and building the presentation.
And there is a little bit of a trick to that. Understand that some people will speak and say things that you absolutely don't want them to say, and it may not even be true. So you may need to be a little bit careful with that scenario in case you have people saying things that are completely contrary to what you are presenting. So be aware of that. You could speak to us about
and there's a way of handling that in a presentation as well. And to that note, there's something that you always say, Rara, about asking, never asking. How does that go again?
Oh, never ask a question that you do not know the answer to.
And where does that come from?
My patient, who is a lawyer, my patient from my psychology practice.
From previous practice.
Right? That's right. And I never forgot that 28 years later, and I still talk about it. It's such great advice. Right. Thank you, Daniel. Right. Let me bring us to this next point.
Absolutely.
This is really, really important. Keeping your word, like just know your word is something you walk in and out the door with, and only you can lose it or give it away. When you tell your audience that you're going to give them something, so we're going to give you the confidence to stand in front of the camera and present your story, your 2-minute story. Okay, now we have to give you the tools to do that, because we can't say, well, you'll just get comfortable with it after 100 tries. We need to give you the tools. So there's actually a friend of mine who's giving a presentation today, and in that presentation, they are giving away tools during the workshop so that you can go home and actually implement and on the spot implement things. So if we promise that we are going to help you to feel more confident, then we have to show you some of the ways to do it. I'll give you an example. One could be, if you have a 2-minute presentation, you can break it up into 4 quadrants, 4 sections. The first 30 seconds, you can tell your story. Your second 30 seconds, you can relate that to a specific person. The next 30 seconds, you can talk about the business that you're in. And the last 30 seconds, you can use that as your close and wrap it all around back up to, this is the amazing life that I have as a result of. So whatever the 4 quadrants are for your specific story, we can identify it. But you can take a 2-minute story and break it up into 30 seconds. Know your points, not use notes. Know what you have to say. Look at your clock. Time it at 1 minute. At 30 seconds, you know you're at the first quadrant. 30 seconds to 1 minute, you're at the second. 1 minute to 1 minute and 30, you're at the third. And 1 minute and 30 to 2 minutes, and you're done. And that tool, that advice, that piece of information could keep you on target for your 2-minute presentation, breaking it up into 4 parts. I've given you a tool. If I didn't do that, then I'm really just talking.
Excellent. Excellent. I was just typing something, and I'm starting to type something in the chat. So, yeah, it's so important. Remember that it's an honor and a privilege to be able to present to, train, teach your fellow human beings. Hold that carefully in your hands. Don't crush it. Be at integrity with your presentation. Don't get on to a presentation or a speech and say, we're going to teach you this, or even market saying, we're going to teach you this, and this, and then fill your whole presentation with marketing and trying to get people to buy something, and you never really get to the content. We've all been on webinars like that, where it's all sales, and they never really end up teaching you anything. I've learned my lesson, and I know when to exit out of those types of presentations. So hold your audience's being there, their presence, as a sacred trust, as a contract between you, and don't break the contract. It's so important to building that trust.
Yes, great points. Because once your audience has listened to you, that's where the work begins. Will they come back? Will they engage with you? Will they discuss what you have said and repeat it? Like I repeated the story of Eric Worre when he told that to us. Will someone go out and quote you and live on with the learnings and the teachings that you've given them? And if they do, then you've done a good job. Good job. High five yourself. Ask people, right? Pat yourself on the back. Ask your audience, and we'll do that with you. We'll say, please put a comment. Let us know. Now, don't ask a question unless you know the answer. We could always delete that comment if we don't like it.
No, we won't do that.
We wouldn't do that, but we could. I mean, if somebody did something that was maybe against Facebook rules and we thought it would affect
Trolls,
our page, right, or it would affect our audience, then we would. But when you ask a question, you do it with the best of intentions, and you can ask your audience to engage with us however you want, and that engagement will let us know that you're showing up. If you received value, we'll ask you, not because we're looking for validation. What we're looking for is to see that we're giving you what you came here for. Right. We told you what we're going to do. We told you, and then we told you what we did. Tell you what you could do. That's what we did. But you may have missed the first two parts and only caught I didn't know what I was coming here for, because maybe you missed the notification a week ago, or you missed the notification today, or you missed what we said in the beginning. And you're thinking, well, I had no idea why I was here. So we ask you, how was that for you? What was something that you learned today that you feel was a very valuable piece, that you think your life is so much better now?
And whether you're watching us live or watching the replay of this, let us know in the comments or in the chat, like, what did you learn and what would you like to see more of in the content from us? We want to be able to give you what you're looking for. We have lots of ideas. Like I said, we have, almost 70 plus years of experience between the two of us in this field. So we've got lots of stories and mistakes and wins to draw from. So let us know what it is you'd like to hear more about, and we'd be happy to put that together for you.
Oh, I have an idea.
Okay, what's that?
One day, 1 week, I'd like us to talk about all the bloopers that we learned from.
Okay.
Right? Does that make you laugh when you think about all the things that we did and we're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to handle that? But yet we're here to talk about it, and we're here to, maybe we did it again once, maybe twice, but I doubt two Sicilians would do it 3 times. We learned from right. But we've done things in our life. So that could be another piece of content you might want to know. How did we overcome, and I'll use the word blooper, but how did we overcome some of those not so graceful things that happened, like spilling things and whatever. No, mic's not working, or, oh gosh, I have a story about my mic that wasn't turned off while I was doing a TV show. Like, there are so many. Oh, I have never told
wardrobe malfunctions and all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
that could be a fun show, and I'd love for you to tell us what you want to hear, and then we could certainly give you a great information. We could probably make it pretty funny.
Well, and that's the thing is we want to provide that value. What are the challenges you're facing as a speaker or as a presenter? Is it crafting your presentation? Is it how to use PowerPoint or Keynote or a slide deck of some sort? Is it how to add a video clip into a presentation? Is it how to move on stage? Is it how to use your voice and project more? Or is it how to craft your story, how to be able to tell your story more effectively? All of these things we'd like to be able to help you with.
One of the things that I really love when I'm listening to someone is I'd love to hear There's sound. Some people don't really care too much about that, so they're talking. But there is something that you can do with sound. So if you have a microphone, and we use Blue Yetis, you can set them certain ways, and there are settings, and you can hold them certain ways. And there are times that we can get really close to the mic if the camera's off.
Talk like really close to it like this.
And it sounds so cool. So if you're working with presenting, think about your sound, because we have to listen to it. The audience, if I'm in your audience, I have to listen to that, and it's really fuzzy or not too clear, or if you do something with your voice that I like,
echo.
Right. If you do something with your voice that I like, I might be sitting on the edge of my chair going, oh, when are they going to do that? So develop a little bit of a shtick, if I may say so.
Yes, because then you can get really close and whisper, and maybe people will draw in closer. There's a whole field called ASMR where they talk very quietly, and people find it very relaxing. And then you can talk a little bit louder. So play with it. But you have to have good audio quality. I don't know about you, Rara, but I will watch a video that has poor video but good audio. But if it's got poor audio, I'm out of there.
Yeah, I'm gone too. It's really important. I mean, we talk about this every day. Like, how do I sound? How do I sound? Playing with my sound. Is that okay? Is that good? Is this better? What's better than that? Let me hang the mic. No, let me put the mic here. It's really important to us. And the funny thing is, we get compliments all the time on our sound. We focus on it and we improve it every time. We don't take for granted that today this is going to give us the best sound.
Right.
We check it
before we get online. Yeah. Before we go live.
Remember the one time I had the wrong settings? I guess
it happens. That's why you check it.
That's why you have a partner like Dr. Energy who helps you to check it, and vice versa. Because sometimes you're like, I don't hear you. Oh, I'm muted. Right. So I think it's important to really think about what it's like to be not only the presenter, it's important to think about what the audience is receiving so that you can decide, would you be in your own audience?
Right. Great. I think that's been a great live stream today. I'd like to share two things before we get out of here.
All right.
Before we let you go.
Before we wrap it up?
Before we wrap it up. So our latest podcast episode, so Providing Value with Miguel Ribeiro of VBS IT Services. We had a great conversation with Miguel about protecting your personal and business information and data and how to be safe online with passwords, backing up your data, all of that type of thing. It just dropped this morning. So you can go to b-u.network/Miguel Ribeiro and you can get it there, or just go to our website, b-u.network, and look for the podcast episode. The second thing is, if you enjoyed this content and found it valuable and would like to help us continue producing more of it, because it does take some time and effort and some cost, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/BU-Network and buy us a coffee. We'd really appreciate it, and we'd love to have a coffee with you.
Dr. Energy, let me tell you the funny thing in my house. When I asked David for a coffee, now he's like, do I take up my credit card, or do you really want a coffee? What do you want? Love it. Love it.
David, you're too funny. I love that dry sense of humor. Is beautiful.
You got to be a fly on the wall in this house with our humor here.
Excellent. So we would really appreciate that. So until next week, maybe next week will be bloopers. We will be posting later today what our topic for next week will be. So check in and check out what that's going to be.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you.
See you next week.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao, Bellows.